I'm Alistair Campbell, and you're listening to the Ireland Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Ireland Podcast. This is Fender Jackson. The time is 7:42 on Thursday, the 7th of May, 2026. I am online with this person here. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name's Jonathan, and currently I am walking around the UK and later in the year Ireland, and I'm raising money to go towards 4 great mental health charities. So the mental health charities I'm supporting in Ireland, in the north it's Aware NI, and then in the Republic it's Aware. So I started in the Shetland Islands on the 1st of January this year, and I'm currently heading towards Liverpool. I'll be in Liverpool in 2 days' time. And also at the same time as raising funds, I'm also giving talks on my own lived experience with mental health.
Brilliant. Jonathan, we go back a long time.
We most certainly do. I was trying to think, it's at least 20 years.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was. It was it was in PwC. You came in and you did your Smart Wisdom workshops. We'll get into that, I'm sure. And I left there in 2008 because of the crash. So I was there between 2005 and 2008. So I think it was around 2007. Oh, it's probably about 20 years. Yeah.
So I think I remember visiting your flat.
You did.
Just before you left
for China.
Yeah.
Wow. And you can speak Chinese?
一点点
Xinhua. So, yeah. Tell me, I know a bit about you, obviously, because I've been following you, but tell me, why did you choose to do this?
By all means. So I, during COVID, I had a tough time with mental health. And towards the end, I was seriously thinking of calling it a day. And I'd started writing a book about my experience, and I'd written a section what I called an emergency action plan. So what to do, when the proverbial hits the fan. And I couldn't remember what I'd put. And so I sort of had a look on my laptop and I saw that I'd written, number 1 is to keep an open mind and be willing. Number 2 was to see a medical professional. And number 3, to do what they advise. And despite all my experience with mental health and getting help, I still resisted all 3 of those things. But I did do it because I was in a desperate state again. And I saw my local GP. They referred me to a psychiatrist very quickly. And the psychiatrist recommended I change medication. And I declined to do so on numerous times in previous years. And this time I said, okay, let's do it. I had a bit of a rough ride when changing medication. But the psychiatrist I was getting help from was brilliant, and she added an extra medication. And after about 5 months, it was like a miracle. It was no longer an effort to live, to breathe, to be, which for me, really is a miracle. And so I'd always thought if I had a sustained period of mental stability that I'd write a book about my experience. And that's what I did. And I self-published that towards the end of last year. And then I was thinking, well, what else could I do to sort of engage with more people? And I came up with the idea of the walk. And originally I was going to do John O'Groats to Land's End, but then I thought, well, everyone does that. So that's when I thought I'll start in Shetland. And then I thought, well, while I'm at it, I might as well go around Wales. And while I'm at it, I might as well go around Ireland too. So that's pretty much how it came about.
And I mean, where did that idea come from?
That's a really good question. I've cycled John O'Groats to Land's End before. I've done it twice actually for charity when I was younger. Um, and I was sort of aware of other people doing physical challenges on behalf of mental health charities. So I think it was a combination of those. And the reason I decided that I wanted actually to go around Ireland is because the Irish very kindly gave me an Irish passport, which I got last year, I think. And so it's my way of saying thank you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm very intrigued about your mental health journey. So, is this something that has been environmental or genetic, do you think, for you, your condition?
I would say the conditions themselves are genetic and or physical stroke chemical illnesses. I would say some of the thinking and the sort of negative thinking and the sort of the turmoil of the mind, I would say some of that was environmental. But predominantly, I am convinced that the illnesses I had were there, and they were there from a very early age. So probably from about the age of 7 onwards, I knew something was seriously wrong.
And I mean, as a 7-year-old, what was happening in your life?
So, I mean, I'm fortunate and I come from a very privileged background. However, despite that, by the age of 7, I wish I'd never been born. And I wish I'd had any other family than the one I did. I think looking back, with a sort of wiser head, it wouldn't have mattered where I was born or what family I was born to. I'd probably say and think exactly the same thing. And at that stage, what was actually happening was I was having these sort of mood swings where my mood would change really quickly and I'd either say or do something I later regretted. And yeah, there was just something wrong with my brain, and living was an effort. And if I wasn't living, that would be a solution. That's probably the easiest way to describe it.
Wow. I'm really sorry to hear this, Jonathan. I feel almost, well, I do feel like I'm intruding by asking questions even. And if
No, don't worry. Please feel free to ask.
Okay. Well, if I do get into an area where you don't want to answer, please just stop me.
I'll run away.
Yeah. So may I ask about COVID then? What was happening then that you had such a dark time?
So I have bipolar disorder type 2. I also have clinical depression and an addictive personality. And in terms of neurodiversity, I have dyslexia. So as I mentioned before, I've had all of these from a very young age. And part of the bipolar disorder, so I was diagnosed with the mental health illnesses in my early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. And I was diagnosed with dyslexia in my late 40s. And certainly until my mid 30s to late 30s, I had absolutely no idea what the problem was. So when COVID hit, part of bipolar is this hypermania. So for type 2, they describe it as hypermania. And what will happen is you'll go right up to that line that separates sort of sanity and insanity, but you'll stay slightly south of it, and your activities become hyper. So it's like hyper relationships, hyper risk taking, hyper thinking, hyper rumination. Everything is hyper, and also sort of hyper grandiose thinking as well. So I started a online business, which of course was going to be a roaring success, and I'd taken out a substantial loan against my property on the basis of this roaring success. And within 2 weeks of it launching, I realized it wasn't going to go anywhere. And the stress had been building up. So my highs can last really long. And this one started about in May, and I crashed in December.
What year?
So this was the year before COVID.
Okay, 19.
Yeah. So going into COVID, I was in a really tough spot. And I had, after that, I think 2 or 3 highs and crashes in quite quick succession. And for most of COVID, I was severely depressed. And I'd sort of gone back to trying to manage it myself. And I can see this now looking back with hindsight. So I created this very complicated spreadsheet. Well, initially it wasn't too complicated. And I would measure my moods like 5 times a day. And I was looking to see what activities would move the dial. And in the mornings, I had like a sort of set routine, and I would capture my thinking in the morning, which was often really negative. And then I'd try and flip it into positive thinking. I would do journaling. I would do meditation, having a proper breakfast, etc., etc. And I had this like checklist of things to do. And so when I first created the spreadsheet, it was taking about 15 minutes a day. And by the time I'd sort of evolved, which was only probably a month or so later, it's taking about an hour and 15 minutes every day, just in the morning. And then I'd be doing the sort of the checks again at different times during the day. And looking back, what I was doing, I was trying to manage this thing myself. I was trying to find a way that I could control what was going on. And it just wasn't possible. I mean, if I did everything that I sort of planned, so that was like having a really tight structure to the day, having a list of things to do. And if I did everything that I knew, possibly somewhere between the times of about 1 to 3 p.m., the depression might start to lift. But I didn't even really acknowledge that what it was I was having was depression. But that's exactly what it was, in addition to the bipolar highs and crashes. So bipolar high and the bipolar crash and the 4 to 6 weeks after a crash are very different for me to what I call regular clinical depression, where everything is flat, everything is an effort, everything is grey, there's no point in doing anything. So I just reached a point where the suicide ideation was just constant. And then I reached another point where I just thought, you know what? I haven't got the effort, the energy or the willpower or the inclination to carry on with this any longer. I've had it for 50 plus years and I'm fed up. I'm tired and I'm just not prepared to do it any longer. And that wasn't like a big transition. It was almost like a smooth, natural transition from the constant suicide ideation to actually then losing the willpower to carry on. And I realized at that point I was in deep, I was about to use a swear word, but I'll use doo-doo, deep doo-doo.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided, well, realistically, there's no point carrying on. So I either call it a day or I go back to, this emergency plan and I follow it to the letter. And I chose the latter. And because I chose the latter, I was then able to get this period of stability, which has now been about 3 years. And it's a period of stability that, I've never had before to this extent.
Wow. You're married still?
No, I got divorced about, I separated about, 9 years ago now.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm divorced too, also. So I'm wondering, is there? Do you think divorcees are more prone to this type of thinking? And what advice have you got to men who are in this situation? I'm thinking about men because the statistics are coming out time and time again that men are more likely to kill themselves than women. It's like if there's 5 people, 4 of them will be men.
Yeah, and also actually the statistics also show that people with bipolar are more prone to ending their lives. There's a higher percentage of people with bipolar who actually make that decision and take the action. And I think the reason for that is because if you haven't found a solution or you don't even know what's going on, bipolar is relentless, and it's like you're fighting someone inside your brain all the time. And in fact, how I saw it, my brain was my enemy. So what advice would I give to people? I think, again, a lot of this is sort of with benefit of hindsight, having written the book, having sort of clarifed my thinking. My core advice is that, or my core belief now, is to treat the brain like the rest of the body, because it's a physical part of the body, and because it is a physical thing, like every other part of the body, things are going to go wrong. It also happens to be probably one of the most complex parts of the body, and one of the parts of the body that we least understand. So I refused to go and see a doctor because I thought it was a weakness. So now if I think about my brain as a physical part of the body, I was applying one rule to every other part of my body other than my brain. So if I had a problem with my nose, my ears, my teeth, my throat, my eyes, my hair, skin, and everywhere else below my neck, I'd go and see a doctor at some point. But with my brain, I had this thinking that I should be able to fix it myself, but I wasn't applying that rule to any other part of my body. So the advice that I would give is, exactly like, if you're a fit physical athlete, if you have a knee problem, you go and see a knee specialist. And what I would say is, if the brain is causing problems, or it's becoming an effort to live, or there is something seriously wrong, I would strongly recommend seeing a medical professional. Someone who has, so in the first instance, it might be a GP, and then getting referred to a specialist, which could be a psychiatrist, or it could be someone within the medical professions who has a specialist area. It could be ADHD, or it could be bipolar, or it could be whatever. And yes, it takes courage to do that, because you're saying, actually, I recognize now that my brain is a physical part of my body, and I need help. And actually, people, whether you're seeing an accountant, if you've always done your accounts yourself, you think, actually, I should be able to do this. But as things get more complicated, you then eventually realize, actually, probably I do need an accountant. And I would literally treat it as simply as that, is that if you feel there's something wrong, life is an effort, or there is something going on inside your head, to go and see a medical professional and to try and do whatever they recommend. Because the greatest freedom, ironically, is getting accurate diagnosis. Because the second you have an accurate diagnosis, you can then go and read about it. You can join, support groups. You can build, peer friendships with other people who have similar or the same illness. So getting an accurate diagnosis is the first really concrete step to what I describe as freedom.
I was interested why your conditions sound quite severe, and then dyslexia seems to jump out as is that not the least of your worries? That was my thinking whenever, and forgive me for my ignorance, but why what emphasis do you place on dyslexia in amongst your other conditions?
It's a really good question. So, as I'm talking with you here today, the illness that will potentially kill me is the bipolar. It's not the addictive personality, although that can, if I was allowed that to sort of run riot, that would be just horrendous. But it is the bipolar that I think is the most dangerous for me. So the reason dyslexia is not going to kill me, but what it does do, it severely impacts my life and my sort of self-belief and my self-worth. So, it's much, much less now, but historically, when I left school, I had two objectives. One, to find peace of mind, and the second was to prove that I'm not stupid. And people say, well, obviously you're not stupid. But in my brain, because of my sort of poor exam performance, because my difficulty with studying and learning, I knew beyond any shadow of doubt that I was stupid. And it affected everything, my work, my confidence. And it was only when I was in my early 50s, I finally accepted at a deep internal level that I'm not stupid. I'm no better, no worse than anybody else. I'm on a sort of peer-to-peer standing with other people. And that's 30 plus years after leaving school. And it would impact me when I was in the police for 12 years, and then I left and I went and did some postgraduate study. So I skipped a degree because of my police experience and went straight to postgraduate, which wasn't the best of ideas. And at that point, I had no idea I had bipolar, no idea I had dyslexia. And the dyslexia, so we would get coursework about every week or 2 weeks, which had to be turned around, particularly when I got onto the masters, had to be turned around really quickly, like within a week or 2 weeks. And so I would get a piece of coursework. My brain would literally close down. I think I can't do this. And then I would crash and I'd be right at the bottom and I'd have to go out and walk for like 10, 15 minutes, then try and study for 45 minutes and then go and walk again to try and clear my head. And after 3 or 4 days, I would then find a way of answering this question or doing the report. And then the second I found that answer, I then went straight through the clouds and I thought, right, I'm going to get distinction now. I'm going to get distinction. I need 70+%. I'm going to get distinction. And I went through that oscillation for 2 years. And so the dyslexia has had a huge impact in terms of like my ability to do things, my confidence, my ability to socially interact, and also from a practical point of view, my ability to work as well. I would, and it would also, which I hadn't realized till relatively recently, it would cause enough stress to trigger the bipolar.
Wow.
So dyslexia seems like, what's the big deal? But it's actually how it interacted with the other mental illnesses. And it, greatly impacted my ability to work. Having said all of that, I mean, just in the last year, I mean, two things have made a huge difference for me. One is now I don't type, I do voice to text. That has made an enormous difference. And the second thing is ChatGPT. So, I mean, I use it a lot, and I've got specific projects which are always ongoing, so it knows sort of where I'm coming from and my tone of voice and etc. But I use it a lot for copy editing. So now the fear of writing something which doesn't make sense is no longer an issue, and that's a huge relief. And also writing. So I'm okay writing something which is factual about something that's happened. But you ask me to write something which is about something in the future, or it's about a project or an idea, and I really, really struggle. But now, using the voice to text, so I can get the ideas out. I use the smart wisdom to organize my thinking. I then get the information out, and then I'll give it to ChatGPT, and then, set it tasks, and also to get it to perform a role. So it could be, the role of a strategic media analyst who specializes in South American media, print media. So getting it to perform really specific roles, and then I'll put in my thoughts and ideas, and I'm then able to then just keep tweaking to get something that I know is really good.
You've mentioned smart wisdom, so it's still going. Talk a little bit about that.
So did it actually, I'm asking you a question? So what my response about the dyslexia and
Yes.
why it is, does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And it's weird, Jonathan, because I'm pretty darn dyslexic. I came out of school thinking I was a thicko, and I repeated my A levels because I just gave up, and then what happened was I took some years out. I went to do a performing arts course, and I got 13 distinctions, 5 merits, and a pass. So because it was mostly practical, and it was music, it was performing arts, and I was flying. I'm also an alcoholic. I haven't drunk in 21 years. So thankfully I didn't get into the heavier stuff beyond the spirits. But I thankfully I see people, friends of mine, who are depressed, manic depressive, bipolar. I don't know what their conditions are, but they're more prone to depression than I. And I feel for them. I do have down days, obviously, because I'm human, but I don't have the same chemical imbalance seemingly as many others. I'm so thankful and seemingly blessed for that. So a lot of what you're saying was ringing true, and I can understand how it's almost like an accelerator for your manic mood swings. Yeah, I fully get that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's well, I mean, same as you. I haven't had a drink or a drug now for 40 years.
Wow, 40 years.
Yeah.
What age are you?
Well, obviously I'm 42. No, I'm 64.
Wow,
And
you're looking well.
thank you. It's mainly the shampoo and the skin lotion. Um, yeah, so I stopped drinking and taking drugs when I was about 22. I'd just come back from Australia. I'd had some really rough times drinking in I worked in the Australian outback as a cowboy, and I'd had some really rough times drinking and smoking wacky backy, um, a lethal combination for me. And I came back and I just realised I had enough problems without drinking or taking drugs, and also particularly drinking. For me, the line between sanity and insanity was like finer than a piece of hair. And if I drank, I just, I couldn't be certain what sort of ridiculous things I'd get up to, and I would just cross over that line.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then I found my sort of addictive personality morphed, so like work, relationships, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. So smart wisdom.
Smart wisdom. Yeah. So what happened at university is that I knew that if I did what I did at school, there was no chance that I would, even be able to finish the courses. And it was very touch and go anyway. And I nearly left the first course, which was a postgraduate diploma, but I was persuaded to stay. And the second course, I nearly quit it after 3 days. It was just like, it was in finance, international trade and shipping. And I mean, the economics and the maths was just way above my head. But again, I was persuaded to stay, and I worked 13 days out of 14. I took 1 day off every 2 weeks, and I worked between 10 to 12 hours a day. But what I also did was I knew that if I had to do something about capturing information. And so I started off with a number of different techniques, and I was testing them. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose here. If they don't work, then I'm just where I was had I not tried them. And eventually these techniques, I just started to evolve them and then tweak them specifically for like studying a complex master's degree. And then I realized, actually I've got something here that can really help people, and potentially it can really help people in business, particularly in meetings. And so I finished my master's degree. I worked in shipping for a couple of years because I was hoping to go and work in China. That didn't pan out. And then I set up my own business. And just purely by chance, my first client was a bank. And yeah, that's how it all started. And so then I just carried on evolving the technique, had scientific studies done. Yeah, that's sort of where I am today. Essentially, what smart wisdom is, it's just a different way of taking notes. So rather than writing everything down, what you do is you capture the key words and then and the key details. So basically, you're capturing all the relevant nouns and verbs and possibly adjectives and adverbs, but none of the interconnecting grammar or words. And then you link it together, and that process of listening out for the key words that are relevant to you and have meaning for you and are important to you, and then linking them all together is what increases the real-time understanding by, well, the studies showed it increases understanding by about 20%, which is huge. But it also really increases like one's ability to listen and understand in real time.
Brilliant.
So that's smart wisdom.
Where can people find out more about smart wisdom?
So at the moment, because I'm sort of focusing on this walk, there is a temporary website, but if people go to that and contact me through that, then I can get things sorted for them. Yeah, so just feel free to get in contact, and I'll be able to set people up with learning how to do smart wisdom.
Brilliant. Talk a little bit about your walk so far.
So I I started in Shetland on the 1st of January, and I didn't really give it a lot of thought because I knew I wanted to start on the 1st of January. I knew I wanted to start in Shetland, so that's what I'll do. And then people started saying to me, well, you do know that Shetland is very, very windy and can be very, very cold and potentially dangerous. And then I thought of a rationale as to why I started in Shetland on the 1st of January. And I said, well, it's good because it reflects mental health. You know, sometimes things are really tough and it's a matter of just putting one foot in front of the other. I then used ChatGPT to perform the role of an experienced mountaineer walker who's used to walking in midwinter in the north of Scotland. What equipment would you take? And basically, and then I asked a lot more questions. So say I recommend getting whatever waterproof trousers. So I then say to it, well, can you recommend the top 3 waterproof trousers and why you recommend each one of them? So I was able to sort of analyze its answers as to whether I thought they were good or not. Anyway, I took the whole list to a camping shop and they just said, yeah, this is what you need. And so I got it all. And I'm really pleased I got it because the first day in Shetland, it was like a gale force wind and rain. And I wouldn't have walked, but a chap who lives up there very kindly joined me and gave me the confidence that it was possible. And then the second day, was it second or third day, it was just bonkers. It was like really strong wind, hail and snow. And there was a really heavy snowfall. And it was so bad, it was almost funny. I was sort of walking along thinking, it can't get worse than this. Unfortunately, I had a pair of sunglasses because the hail would, if it got in your eye, it would blind you temporarily. So I would just literally, it's one foot in front of the other, and I would go through a routine and my feet warm, yes, and my legs warm, yes. Is my body warm? Yes. And my hands warm? Yes. Is my head warm? Yes. And then I think, well, I'm okay then. And I'd carry on walking. But I was, on the days it was really bad, I didn't meet any other walkers. Let's put it that way. And then coming through the north of Scotland, north of England, it's just been fantastic. Lots of really beautiful places, amazing scenery. And as I mentioned, one of the key objectives for me on the walk is meeting other people, sharing about my experience. I've got like a leaflet I give everyone. I then decided to give my book away as a free download for everyone that I met. And the reason I decided to do that was because my whole objective was to inspire other people, give them hope, and share my experience, strength, and hope to benefit other people. And so that sort of brought me up to where I am today. I'm on day 127 and total days will be 296. So I'm almost halfway.
What's the most you've walked in one day?
It was in the Yorkshire Moors or Yorkshire. Is it the Yorkshire National Park? And I think I walked about 29 miles.
Wow.
And even before I finished, I was absolutely knackered. I can't think of a better word, but I was knackered. And I was thinking, oh, it'd be so nice. And it was also very hot as well. And I think it'd be so nice. I'd just lie down on the grass for a bit. And I could have quite easily lay down on the grass and just gone to sleep. But I think the day before that, I'd walked about 18, 19 miles. And the day after it, I walked about 24. And I think it was a combination of those 3 long days over quite hilly terrain is where I got my ankle injury.
Talk about that.
So I've had like aches and pains all the way through, but I don't really worry about them. They sort of seem to come and go. I've seen a physio 3 times now, different physios 3 times, sort of podiatrist once. And so what I've done is I've changed equipment depending on what the injury is. So initially I felt like it was the start of shin splints. So I swapped out my really heavy walking boots, which were brilliant in Shetland and Orkney, but were jarring against my shin. And then I had a lighter pair, and then I got like pains underneath my soles. So then I moved on to using a company brand called Hoka. And I used a trail running shoe, and I wore out one pair in about 8 weeks, 7 weeks, went on to my second pair. And that's when I started getting the quite bad ankle problems. And I went to another physiotherapist, and they said, the ankle is moving around too much and it's just not used to that type of stress. And they gave me some exercises because the shoes was comfortable. I didn't really think too much about it. And then I thought, actually, in the last about 4 days ago, I was thinking this isn't clearing up. And then I thought, why don't I ask ChatGPT, my mate? So I took photographs of my feet, all different angles. Well, I asked ChatGPT what it wanted. And I described the problem. I took photographs of the shoes I was wearing. And basically it said that its advice was to get road running shoes with more stability. So that's what I've done.
Cool.
And today was the first day of wearing them. And my ankle, let me have a feel. Yeah, it seems to be okay. I did a little twirl of my ankle.
The elephant in the room, how are you financing it?
So through savings. So I saved up money to be able to do the trip. And so that's one thing. Another thing is that where I can, I've stayed with friends or friends of friends. And I've also accepted accommodation from like other mental health charities. So I was very kindly put up for, I think, 4 or 5 days in Orkney by a family who had their own mental health charity. And so that has helped reduce the financial outlay considerably. And it's also meant that I've met up with lots of really nice people. And because originally I was going to Wild Camp. And when I weighed my rucksack, it came to about 27 kg. And I thought, I'm not even sure I can get to the tube station, never mind up to Shetland. And so I started staying. And the reason I was going to Wild Camp was, one, because it sounded like a great experience, and two, because it'd be cost effective. And then I realized actually staying with people hits my objective more, because it means I'm meeting more people. I'm talking about mental health and neurodiversity more. And one family, I met the husband again about a week or so later, and he said, although any of us don't have the issues that you've unfortunately got, actually it's been really, really helpful to understand how these manifest and how they affect people. So I appreciated him saying that, because that made me realize that even my sort of knowledge and experience can help people who don't have issues better understand and be more compassionate for people who do.
You said you're very close to Liverpool. So that means there's a fair bit of the stretch to go. You're going to go, I assume, through Wales after you hit Liverpool?
No, I go from Liverpool and then down to London, then down to Southampton, and then I bounce back up to Bristol. Then I go through Wales.
Wow.
And then I cross over to Northern Ireland.
So I'm thinking about people who want to help you. I mean, I want to help you, and you're going to stay with me on the final stretch. You're going to my My spare bed is waiting for you in Galway. Yeah. So what can people do to help you?
Well, what I can do is I can send you a link that people can click on. I can send you a QR code, and what that'll do, that'll take people through to like a menu, and in that, people are able to follow me on social media. They can see my GoFundMe page.
Is that
So I'm
link?
trying to,
Is that a link tree? Account?
yes, a link tree.
So link linktr.ee/.
I think it's Jonathan Kemp London.
Okay. And they can also go to jonathankemp.com for the website. In case people don't want to look on the notes, they can just go there. So yeah, that'll take you to your journey and how people can help you.
Yeah, so that will take me to the journey. It'll also take people to the donations page. And then there is also, people can contact me, so that my social media links are there. So they can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They can also WhatsApp me. And also, as part of the link tree, they can get the free ebook of my memoir. And also they can get a map of the whole journey and see where I am day by day. And so if people, are able to help with accommodation on the route, that would be amazing. If people can help with raising the funds, that would be amazing. And also, I'm doing talks as well. So, for example, if people want me to do talks, maybe in Northern Ireland or in the Republic, if they send me a message, I can send them the map for that area, and then I can tell them where they're going to be. So, for example, when I get to Cork, I'll have one rest day and then two what I call talk days, and they're specifically arranged for the possibility of doing talks on mental health. Could be to all sorts of people, companies, organizations, charities.
Brilliant. And my question next was going to be, how can I help? And I would like to help by maybe getting you on the podcast and tracking your journey in a few weeks to see what's been the highlights and what other experiences you can share there. But also, whenever you come to Ireland, I would love to do some of those talks with you if you're up for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So we can, I was going to say keep it short and sweet. We've been going for 48 minutes now. So it's never that short with me around. Is there anything that we haven't said that you would like to say, Jonathan? Let's talk about the charities again. Tell me the names of the charities, please.
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, I would really, if I could, how can I put it? What would be amazing if I could get a lot of other people involved, particularly on my Irish leg. Whether it's people joining me to walk, that would be amazing. Doing talks, or just coming out to support. If I could connect with as many people, both in the North and in the Republic, that would be fantastic. In terms of the charities in Ireland, in the North, it's Aware NI, and in the Republic, it's Aware.
And the other two?
So in Scotland, it's a charity called SAMH, and in England and Wales, it's the charity Mind.
Brilliant. Jonathan, I'm full of admiration for you, not just because of the walk, but because of your walk, because of how you've battled through your demons, and you've shared so much of your journey online. I've read it so much, I'm reading with such admiration and gratitude that you're sharing this. And yeah, my hat comes off to you, sir. And I'm, I feel almost ashamed that I've not been in your life as much beyond online, but I hope to make up for it whenever you come to Ireland.
Yeah. Well, I'm really I mean, the only thing that will stop me is a physical injury. And I'm really looking forward to coming to Ireland.
We're hopeful that you're going to be in good enough health for you to complete it. Yes.
Yeah, I will do everything I can.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, best luck, Jonathan. I'll check in with you in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, and we'll get you back on.
That'd be amazing.
Brilliant. Okay. Until next time, sir. Keep going.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. If you know someone who might value this conversation, feel free to pass it on. The Ireland podcast is intended as a record of long-form conversations like this. And if you would like to support the continuation of the work, there is a link in the notes. Take care.